Hi there, my name is Robert Walker and I'm a traditional sign writer. My studio is based in Lancashire and I live in West Yorkshire. And I'm going to take you on a short tour around my studio and how I work and why I love doing what I do. So my studio name is by Umberto, and it used to be Signs by Umberto. And the reason for the change really is to give a kind of broader understanding of all the different facets to what I make, all the different aspects of what comes out of my studio. So I largely work with lettering, and that's traditionally really what a sign writer is. It's painting lettering and painting large scale murals. However, there's an awful lot more to myself as an artist, as well as a sign writer, as well as a traditional craftsman. So I decided to drop the name Signs by and just go with by Umberto. Now, why Umberto? Well, Umberto is actually a nickname that my dad gave me when I was around the age of 5, and it stuck. I'm now 45 and he still calls me Umberto. He doesn't really call me Robert. My mum calls me Robert, but my dad calls me Umberto. So it made perfect sense really for my studio to be called Umberto, because sign writing is a deeply personal thing to me, and being an artist is as well, and a craftsman. So working with my hands is essentially what I do, and that is what I love. It connects with my head, it connects with my heart, it makes me feel fantastic. And then I get at the end of it something really beautiful to look at, something like this, which I can hopefully show you. Now, all of that is made on glass, and it's all made in reverse. So it's made on the back, and it's got a varying degree of carats of gold. So there's 24 karat gold on there, 18 karat gold, 12 karat gold, as well as mother of pearl and all kinds of other wonderful things that makes up that piece of artwork. So I get to work with my hands and make beautiful things like that. Well, I find them beautiful, and I hope you do as well. But I'll take you on a little tour through my studio. Okay, I hope you can all see this slide show. So that's a little bit about my studio that you can see there, and various pieces of work, one of them which I've just shown you now. And I keep moving my studio around really, because my studio is really important to me, and the workshop and the space in which I work is really, really important for my mind, my well-being, how I feel when I'm making work, making artwork, and when I'm sign writing. But as well as that, I also have a record player in the studio, which is really important to me as well. Let me play you this. So this is often how I traditionally start a day really, is before I start drawing, sweeping up, putting the kettle on, I nearly always put music on first, and that sets the mood of the day really. Here we go. That's the view from the studio. It's on the 4th floor of an old mill, which is an old textile mill. And these spaces are absolutely brilliant for studios, really, because when the mills stop being used across the Pennines of the UK and all over the UK, really, then these great big spaces opened up where artists like myself can come in and make the work that we make. So it's wonderful. I mean, I get to see deer out of that window, and it's a big part of kind of my everyday is looking out of that window and thinking about the work that I'm going to make. So to be working with my hands and working with craft is something that is about understanding material really, in the way that it's the knowledge of mind, hand and heart. I hold pencils in particular ways, depending on what I'm drawing on, whether it's I'm drawing on paper or whether it's drawing on a huge brick wall, like you can see in that image there. That was part of a 9-meter long mural. And all of that was scaled up by hand and eye, by understanding material. And so I get this enormous sense of well-being and love, really, for holding materials, for holding a pencil, for sharpening a pencil with a blade, not a pencil sharpener. And all of these things tend to kind of feed into the work that I make and I get paid to do. So this is the mural that I was just referring to. So this was in Bradford, and it was 9 meters long. It was a long way off the ground, and it was for a surveying company called Magnitude Surveys, and I needed to recreate their logo from a piece of paper. You know, it was on a piece of paper about this big. I needed to make it huge, as you can see in the image there, as well as drafting all of the lettering exactly as it is on the paper to how it is on the wall. Let's see. And as well as that, as referring back to the image that I showed you earlier of the piece of work with the different carats of gold, I also use loose gold leaf, and I pick that up with a gilder's tip and place that onto glass in reverse. So even though the mural in Bradford on the big brick wall was one aspect of what I do and what I make, you know, large scale murals, as well as that, I create pieces on glass, as I showed you earlier, which requires a different type of understanding of my hands and my mind and my eye and the materials that I use. And I'll just play that again, because this is called water gilding, which was a critically endangered craft. Watch the gold now. There, it leaps from the gilder's tip, which is squirrel hair or badger hair, onto the glass. And then when that dries, that settles down like a mirrored finish. And it's absolutely magical to watch. And as well as that, I'm working with enamel paints that I mix up by hand and that I apply to the glass in reverse, as I'm doing here now. So this piece was for the Gladstones in North Wales. And it was a community project where all the attendees of the summer camp in North Wales with the Gladstones all got to place a piece of 24 karat gold onto glass, and then I took that back to the studio just to paint the back of the piece, just to finish that off. Now that piece now hangs on the estate in North Wales, which is a beautiful thing. There you go, you can see it now. The stippling effect is from acid etching. So I pour acid onto glass, which then creates this beautiful textured pattern, which is the same techniques that the Victorians used, if not before. Now, the very beautiful thing about my job is that I get to work with lettering, and I get to work with the form of lettering, which I absolutely adore. It's endless, really, is lettering just as a subject, typography just as a subject. But in terms of how you actually adorn that with colour and perspective, as you can see from this image here, like I say, is absolutely endless. And all of this is hand-drawn and hand-painted. This is not my work, I'd just like to point out. This is just for reference, as is this. Now, this image came from the studio of David A. Smith, MBE, in Torquay. And these pieces are original pieces that were sent over to him by a friend in America. And he had all these original boards, and I was there looking at them. And I don't know how old these boards are and this work is, but the accuracy within it is absolutely stunning. And what I really like about this piece is how it's split down one half of colour and then the other half still pencil. You know, so you can see the workings out, you can see how the person's been thinking and how they've been drafting. There's areas there on the F, on the word coffee, where the pencil's not quite finished, the terminal of the F. And all of these things just, oh, they just make me feel absolutely alive, because, you know, they were talking about somebody's hand and eye coordination here, and how this is passed on to my mentor, and how he's passed it on to me, and how this keeps going so that people can create works of art like this, large pieces of signage, large murals across the world, a universal kind of language by painting this beautiful craft. And I'm extremely fortunate to be part of this world of sign painters and sign writers. Now, you might be familiar with the brand Cadbury's chocolate. This is a really old original sketch of a Cadbury's Bourneville advertisement. Wonderful, wonderful references. And a lot of these references can be found on sites such as Better Letters, Mr. Ghost Signs. That, you know, there are numerous accounts on social media that basically highlight all of this wonderful, wonderful history that I'm lucky to be part of. And it goes all the way back, does this? I mean, you know, for hundreds of years, people have been painting, lettering, and advertising their businesses. And this is what I get paid to do. And really, I pinch myself at times that this is my job. And I'm lucky, really, that in many respects, because this job, if you like, is a field of work where I never stop learning. Now, I struggled with learning through my high school years, and I left school with very little qualifications. I actually left school with only one GCSE at grade C, and the rest were D's, U's, F's, and so on. So one GCSE, really, which was in art, and I was lucky to get it at a C. And from that, I actually spent all of my 20s really thinking I was too stupid to go to university. And then as I approached the age of 30 roughly, a friend convinced me to apply for university so that I could teach, which was a huge barrier for me in terms of confidence. But I plucked up the courage and applied. And on the interview for my BA honours degree in graphic design, I got offered a master's. So I ended up bypassing 3 years at university and going straight in at a master's level. And I then went past the master's onto a postgraduate course where I was effectively getting the qualifications so that I could teach. So within about 5 years from having one GCSE, I became senior university lecturer at Leeds College of Art, which I was incredibly proud of that moment. So, and since then, I've kind of taken a step back from full-time education to focus 100% on what I do now, which is sign writing and creating glass pieces with gold. I am completely and utterly in love with this subject, and I think if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still make signage. I would still come to the studio. I'd probably have better holidays, longer holidays, maybe a bigger studio as well. But I would always work in the studio, and I would probably always paint lettering because they bring such joy to me. All of the lettering that you're seeing within these slides have words connected to them, such as the middle of the O is called a counter. The end of the E on rows is called a terminal. You're probably already aware that there in the middle between pring and rows is an ampersand. You've got ascenders, descenders, you've got all these words connected within just the designing of lettering, which I find absolutely wonderful. There is always something to learn within this field. So this, what I'm showing you now, is just the designing of lettering, which you can immerse yourself in. But then you get to be able to paint that, being a sign painter or a sign writer, which is just a wonderful thing. So just being able to load the brush up with paint and take your maul stick and run the paint down the board to be able to finish this design and finish the lettering that you can see on this slideshow is absolutely magical. Within the studio, I also collect a great deal of old certificates that date back to like the 1800s. And this is one from the Brazilian Railway Company. I've forgotten exactly when this dates, but within these certificates, in fact, I can probably show you one now. Yeah, within these certificates, which is like this, you have all the illustration work. So I collect all these old designs. This is the one that you can see now. And I collect them for inspiration on how to draw, how to lay out lettering, and then hopefully how to paint it as well. So everything that I make tends to have a kind of accurate old feel about it, if that makes sense. I collect old books because they have particular types of lettering within them that I can then transfer into a new sign for somebody else. So this might just look like some boring old letters to some people, but to me, they're really exciting because they have a particular style of handwriting that I can then take away from that and put into something brand new. Something new like this, which I painted in North Wales on a 17th century garden wall And that garden wall used to be the garden of William Gladstone. Okay, who was at one point one of the most famous men in the world. And that's a piece for Xanthi Gladstone, of William's family. And it was a piece that was painted and drawn directly onto the wall. So I drew the grow freehand first, by eye, a little bit of measuring, but not a great deal of measuring, all by eye, optical spacing. And then I painted that by hand, freehand, no tape. And the wall goes like this, you know, it's so rough. And it's also covered in hundreds and hundreds of nails because they used to grow things up that wall. Wherever a line crossed over the head of a nail, I painted it directly over the head of a nail, just to get that absolutely as perfectly as I could. And here's the client there. So the client was Xanthi Gladstone, but it was also Charlie Gladstone as well, Xanthi's father. And Charlie runs festivals. He's a client, a friend, and runs festivals from his garden in North Wales, where the grow piece was painted. And the festivals, small festivals, are called summer camp, and they're absolutely wonderful spaces where I get to visit. I get to meet amazing people like this DJ at Sushi. And that's often where I get to run workshops. Now, sign writing has, you know, a large array really of styles, you know, from Cobalt Collective here. This is all sign writing, all mural work. And it's extremely varied, you know, so I've been showing you quite a lot of traditional styles, like from the glasswork and the things that I collect there, which can be transferred into sign work and mural work. But there are plenty of sign writers and sign painters of all ages, really, that are really pushing the boundaries of what sign painting and sign writing and the heritage of sign making is all about. And Cobalt Collective are a great example of that, really. And they did a beautiful piece up in Morecambe with Deco Publique, and it's a huge piece on the gable end of a big building. And I think that piece there that they photographed in front of, I think, was for the V&A up in Dundee. So, you know, people are really pushing the boundaries with this subject, which is absolutely wonderful. This, going back to the summer camp with the Gladstones, was a huge mural that I made with about 350 guests that came and stayed at the summer camp. This is me just starting off some of the final lines before some of the campers have woken up. But as you can see, it's all freehand. That's a bit like how Cobalt Collective and various other sign painters work. Some people tape off, and I prefer to work completely freehand. It's a wonderful thing to do. When you pull that line perfectly and you load up the brush instinctively with paint, it's just utterly magical. And this was, you know, what was going on basically, linked back to the previous slide. All ages, families, individuals, about 350 people roughly across 4 weekends in July made an enormous mural, which now hangs in the walled garden at Howardon. And the age group was, you know, varied from, I think Iris was the first person that painted on these boards. She was around 4 years old. And I don't really know how old the oldest person was, but there was a very big range of people that were interested in this. And I think ultimately what that shows really and demonstrates is just how important this is for people's well-being. You know, it gives them a sense of belonging and space and heritage and tradition and storytelling by painting. And you can do that either with typography or with illustration. You know, this was a piece that I painted in Satchel. It was 30 foot high. As you can see, I'm going up the scaffolding. Very difficult to do that whilst holding the phone. So all of this lettering that you can see here is all painted directly onto the wall, and it's all drawn directly onto the wall, the way that the old sign writers, traditional sign writers, would have worked as well. And this was about 25 feet off the ground, where no one is going to really see those details. But for me, those details are everything. It's what sets me apart from somebody else by that ownership of quality. You can see how rough the wall is there, but I'm taking a great deal of time and patience and love just to get that little bit absolutely spot on, because I love it. So that little area there is called cutting in. And this is masonry paint. It's very different to the type of sign writing paint that I used on shop signs, which is enamel paint. I get a lot of pleasure from pulling those, getting those lines as neat as I can. And this was the amount of work really that it took to get that mural to a finished state. So as well as painting, lettering, and being an artist, if you like, there's also a lot to do with finishing these pieces that requires, you know, using a drill or using a flamethrower or using acid or using all kinds of different tools, really. So it's quite an exciting job, really. You know, it's very varied. Every single day is different. This wonderful piece of work is a short clip from a friend of mine called David A. Smith, MBE. And I was lucky to be trained by Dave to be able to put gold onto glass. And what David's done really is he's ignited this enormous wealth of interest within gilding. And he's done that right across the world, but he's based in Torquay in the UK. And if it wasn't for Dave, I wouldn't really be making work like this, which I made for my son. I painted that in reverse on the back of glass, all freehand, as demonstrated here. And the line that I'm about to pull on this particular piece is about 1 millimeter, so it's a really, really fine line. And you might notice my hand shaking at this point because I'm under quite a lot of stress and pressure. But what the paint's doing is the paint's staying exactly where it needs to be, because really what you're always doing is watching what the material does, rather than worrying about how much you shake or whether you can pull a straight line. You just watch what the paint's doing all the time as you're pulling that brush, and it will do what you need it to do, you know. And it's a beautiful thing. This was shown at London Craft Week last year, where I was lucky to meet the Malaysian royal family and talk about this piece, talk about the work that I do. I mean, son's first word was bird, and that's why there's 2 birds on this piece. So my son's name is Reuben Arthur Walker. This piece is dedicated to him. And he chose 2 illustrations from one of his books, one of his bird books that he absolutely loves. An eagle and an albatross. Both was painted backwards and have an outline of 24 karat gold. And it's because of the training that David Smith gave to me that I can put gold onto glass. And then since then, I've been learning every step of the way because I love doing what I'm doing. And here's the piece finished. So as you can see there, you've got acid etching on the bottom, mother of pearl in the middle, oil gilding at the top, water gilding at the bottom, and lots of different carats of gold. It's wonderful. Now, from that, I've been awarded a scholarship through the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, which is an absolutely wonderful thing to be able to say, really, and be involved in and be part of their family, if you like, as well as being a member of the Heritage Craft Association. All of these people behind what we do as makers keep craft at the absolute forefront of people's mind and help bring the awareness of the importance of craft, really, for well-being, as well as for keeping traditional crafts alive. It brings that to people's attention. And I was awarded a scholarship to go back to David A. Smith and learn brilliant cutting. Now, it's due to the generosity really of people like this, who's Andrew Winch from Winch Design, who is my donor really for my Quest scholarship. Now, because of the generosity of this man, I've been able to learn a very, very rare craft. I think it's critically endangered at the moment on the red list from the Heritage Craft Association. Brilliant cutting is essentially where you're cutting into glass on a stone wheel, which I've now learned how to do that. And I'm at the beginning now of a kind of lifelong quest, if you like, to perfect that really as much as I can, and to try and keep that craft alive, just as my mentor has done. Now, this is the work of Winch Design. Astonishing, astonishing work. Who designed the interiors of the yachts, the style of the yacht, as well as the interiors of private jets and chateaus and a whole range of interior design products. Everything they do is bespoke, and they use drawing at the heart of everything that they make really and develop. So they see the importance right from the word go really of holding that pencil in the hand, demonstrating your thoughts through onto paper, as well as digital illustrations, and then through to execution of this huge, beautiful object that floats on water. Amazing, but it's full of craftsmanship and beautiful, beautiful objects that have been made by hand. And when I was at London Craft Week last year, Andrew Winch there was giving a presentation on the importance of being under Winch's wing through the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, which I'm lucky to be involved in. So I am under Winch's wing as a maker, as you can see there on Andrew Winch's presentation. I was surrounded by other makers who, their work was absolutely exquisite and makes me fill up really with joy to be surrounded by these makers and have the patronage of Andrew Winch and Quest, among others, to be able to do what I do. And this is some of the work that was on show. The work there on the left is my own, and then the carving on the right was also on show by another maker, Andrew Juby, I think he was called. Astonishing, astonishing work, all made by hand. And he was carving actually at the London Craft Week last October. And just to see him working was just magical, absolutely magical. And it's because of these collaborations with organizations like Quest and Winch Design and various other people that we're able to work as makers, and we're able to keep these crafts alive, which is just wonderful. From being Science by Umberto, as I mentioned earlier, I became by Umberto, sorry. And around the time of getting the Quest scholarship, I realized that my work had changed an awful lot, and I'd changed an awful lot as an artist, as a person. And what I needed to do was to rebrand really, and I needed to develop a new website and a new look and feel for the studio. So I decided to work alongside Studio Build, or Studio.Build, sorry, to create a bespoke typeface, which is a logo type, and a full alphabet, as well as a new website and a whole new look. And I was absolutely delighted with the results. And what you see now from my website, which is just byumberto.com, is a fresh series of images that actually puts me as the maker and the artist right at the center of the work, because the work is varied. You know, it depends on what you want the outcomes to be, and what I can bring to that as well, as a maker and an artist. But I'm essentially at the core of that. It's my hands that are doing the work. So what Studio.Build did was to put me right at the center of the website itself, which is a wonderful thing. And I'm very, very grateful for it. I'm lucky that various different photographers come through the studio who photograph my work. This image was photographed by Charlotte Graham, and some of the work, I think, was in the Times newspaper. She photographed me here working on one of the drawings. So all of my work, including the glass work that you can see behind me there in the piece that I showed earlier, all start off as a drawing, exactly the same as Winch Design yachts start off as a drawing as well. So drawing is incredibly important to me as an artist. And with that, I find immense amounts of inspiration. So just a packet of pencils can give me inspiration, such as the lettering there, you know, and the illustration on the left and the way that the whole packaging looks. So all of this inspiration tends to feed into the work that I make as a craftsman, which is wonderful. And the sculpture there on the right, the carving, that's on Leeds City Town Hall. There's two pieces either side of a huge set of doors. And these pieces are massive. Photographing them with like the dirt on them and the shadows from the light, it's just absolutely magical. And it makes me wonder how I can then take that and place that maybe onto a piece of glass. How can I sandblast that image into glass or acid etch it into glass? You know, the typography here, both pieces of typography are both from the city of Leeds. The White Locks pub, it's full of mirrored glass pieces with all these beautiful lettering made by hand, and it all inspires me. But as well as that, I get inspiration from holidays. I get inspiration from places that I wouldn't usually think to find inspiration, places where I go to try and switch my mind off. So this is a rock pool in the Isle of Skye at Coral Bay, just up from Dunvegan Castle. And I just found this rock pool absolutely mesmerizing. That bioluminescent colour of the algae or seaweed, and the way that the light's casting onto that rock, the basalt rock. It's absolutely magical. And I stood there with the calmness that you get from a good holiday, looking out to sea, right at this bay, thinking, how can I make that a piece of artwork? How can I reflect this this thing I'm feeling right now as I stood there looking at that rock pool? How can I reflect that into a piece of work? And this is the direction that my work started to go in of late, where I started to build up a collection of images from different parts of the UK. To try and record my responses to those places. So what I'm doing there is placing 12 karat gold onto the rear surface of glass. You can see on one side there that there is one piece finished, and this is a second piece. So again, hand, heart, mind, using materials, drafting materials. And really what this is, all of this is about, is a sense of storytelling, really, through tradition and through craft and through heritage, which is deeply important to me. You know, places can be very tranquil and relaxing, such as a good holiday or staring at a sculpture in the middle of a busy city. And all of these things have been shaped by time. Some of them have been shaped by other people's hands as sculptors and craftsmen, craft makers. And there's this connection between what I do as a maker and then what I see, and then how I bring that back into my studio to make work that hopefully brings well-being to other people. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed telling this story. You can see more of my work at byumberto.com. Thank you very much for listening.